Welcome back to another episode of the Israel Connection. Ever since October 7th, Israel is at war. Things are unclear, very vague, and it is become increasingly more and more difficult to cover everything that's happening, but we're still going to do our best to provide that with this episode. Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. Bah, that didn't come out well. Good morning. Thank you for joining us again. I think the lack of sleep hours takes its toll eventually. I'm really happy to see you all. We had quite a day yesterday at the JCC. We had the great big challah bake, which I heard was tremendous. I was not allowed to be there since it was an all-women event, but I heard it was great, and I volunteered my wife to help as well. So it looked amazing. We had a lot of people coming. All of the comments I've been receiving was awesome. People were really having a good time. I think all of those community gatherings are so well needed right now for all of us. And I think it brought great comfort. And I really want to thank again Amy and Zena from our community engagement team and everybody else at the J and everybody else who took part in participating in this amazing event. To just do wonderful things for our community. And I think it brought a lot of joy, which was the greatest goal of this event. And I'm just happy it happened. In addition to that, on Sunday morning, we also had a very interesting exhibit by one of our community families for the release of the hostages that went out on the news on Channel 7. Increasing the awareness and making sure people were still going to talk about the 240 hostages still in Gaza. It was a tremendous exhibit. They've placed the posters of the hostages all over the front yard. They have a very prime location, and a lot of people saw it on their way. So a really, really, really interesting exhibit. I'll think I'll upload some of the videos and pictures later today, so you can check my social media and see how it actually looked. And there's also, if you go to Channel 7 Arlington, I think it's the one, you can also see the piece that was on yesterday's news. We'll try and upload those as well. So going towards updates about Israel. I don't know how many of you have read the news this morning, but we were sadly informed about 2 more soldiers that died in combats today, joining the very, very unimaginable toll of more than 1,400 casualties so far ever since October 7th. In addition to that, the fighting in the north continues, and today seemed to be the most bloody day. There were more than 30 launches from the north, from Lebanon towards the northern frontier in Israel. That's where the 2 casualties, I think, were took. A military base, an Israeli military base in the north, was hit as one of those attacks as well, and which marks a very, very alarming escalation in the north of Israel. In the south, the fighting continues within Gaza. There's a lot of military forces, IDF forces inside Gaza, clearing one house after the another, taking care of the tunnels and looking for the hostages. I know we've all been receiving notices from Shifa hospital in Gaza, the one that was also a headquarters for Hamas. And have you also heard about the BBC coverage of that one? About their awful mistakes. So the BBC initially published a piece says that the IDF forces are now targeting medical staff of the hospital when they were actually trying to say that it was aiding medical staff at the hospital to save and take care of wounded and people that were at the hospital. The BBC later on published an apology saying that this is not up to their standards, but making such a critical mistake between targeting and helping, I think deserves more than just an apology. But at this point, I think no one expects, at least from the Israeli side, no one expects nothing from the BBC. This is not the first time they're covering complete nonsense in their news, and they're taking the words of Hamas over the words of Israel, and it's just infuriating. But it's just another one of many different incidents and biased reports we're seeing on the international media regarding what's happening in Israel right now, and it sucks. It just sucks. There's been a lot of talking regarding a deal to free the hostages. I've read about it in numerous sources. None of them is Israeli, by the way. No one in Israel says that there is a deal coming on. The majority of those news come from Egyptian media that's saying that there will be one today as part of some form of a truce or a ceasefire just for a few days for all sides to recover. But here's the thing. In order for Israel, a democratic country, to allow a ceasefire, they actually have to vote on it on the Knesset. Since the state of war Israel has entered is also a legal state, it also means that any change to that state needs to be approved by the parliament, by the Knesset. So in order to actually allow a ceasefire, something that even if it's going to happen, they're going to need the majority of the Knesset to vote for, which doesn't just mean it's political challenges, also means it's going to take time to arrange that voting, and then they'll have to give the people 24 hours to file complaint to the Supreme Court against the ceasefire in case someone resists, and I'm assuming that's going to happen as well. And then the Supreme Court has to deal with the cases very quickly and define whether or not that decision was right to be made or not. But just to understand, like a ceasefire in previous events, in previous military operations in Gaza, was very easily dismissed or approved by the military and the war cabinet. In this case, since it's a state of war, it's very complicated. It's more complicated than just approving it. You need to have a majority for that. And if you're seeing internal Israeli media and all the clashes between the right-wing party of the religious Zionism against the family of the hostages, against actions of the government, you know that right now getting those majorities is going to be very difficult. And it's going to face a lot of challenges from all different sides just within the political sphere, not even talking about the legitimacy and how the public feels about it and how the family of the hostages feels about it. But it is very complicated. What we do know, and again, this is from Egyptian media, not Israeli media, about this deal, is that they're going to release the women and children that are taken hostage, which are 50 out of the 240 hostages. And they're not even going to release all of them at once. They're going to release a few every day, prolong the ceasefire. Now, in previous ceasefires between Israel and Hamas, Hamas was the one to abrupt the ceasefire. Every single time that the ceasefire was caused, Hamas continued to fire rockets over Israel. Israel just stopped retaliating. If this will happen again, Israel will have to decide whether or not they want to continue receiving the hostages or retaliate and then destroy that effort as well. We're definitely in a lose-lose situation here, and if you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because Hamas cannot be trusted, not as a institute and not also as something that controls all of its members, right? So even if Hamas says, we're willing to take this ceasefire, some Hamas individuals can still fire missiles. This is how unstable and dangerous this organization is, and that's why it's going to be very difficult to achieve any type of agreement with them. Josh, you raise your hand. You can go ahead.
Yes, thanks. Dean, I'm rather surprised that about your statement that, hold on, because I'm sorry, I'll have to call you back a little later. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Okay. That because this is a state of war, you can't have, let's say, the war cabinet make a decision. Then actually has to go to the Knesset. Have there been other instances when Israel was at war, either 67 or 73, where this issue came up, and indeed they had to go to the Knesset in order to approve a truce? Tell us more.
So again, as you said, the last time Israel was as a legal state of war was 73, Yom Kippur. That was the last time Israel was at a legal state of that occasions. And then in order for ceasefire to be accomplished, or for any type, or if we're talking about 73, also the agreements with Egypt or with Jordan about the continuous of fight, that was needed. A ceasefire here also means a part of a larger, right, agreement, whether it's the return of the hostages, increasing humanitarian aid toward Gaza. We don't know what are the actual details of this ceasefire, and that's why it's probably going to be something that's going to be more complicated to brought up to the Knesset. In previous cases, did those eventually fell in vote? I'll have to go back to you on that one, if like that actually ever happened. But it is going to be very, very complicated because we don't know yet all the different moving parts of this so-called ceasefire, which again was never approved by Israeli media or Israeli government, just from foreign media. It means Israel hasn't said anything about this yet formally, and we'll just have to see. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Just if you could clarify, because there's been a lot of distinction between what is a ceasefire versus what is a pause or humanitarian pause. Does even a pause require a vote of Knesset, or only a full-on ceasefire?
I'm not so certain about the actual terms of which one does it revolves around what. You know, the military can just decide it pauses its attack for a few days and then it continues, right? It doesn't need the whole Knesset to approve so. But since it becomes, right, a matter of almost diplomatic efforts, as well as the warfare efforts, right? There's two aligned very well, and we have other countries involved, and we have the UN involved, and we have the US involved. You're also facing those two frontiers internally as well. And again, I can go back on the actual terms of what does a ceasefire means, what a humanitarian aid pause means, and like what, which one of them requires what from the Knesset. But from what we know as it for right now, humanitarian aid does flow into Gaza. Israel is already allowing humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. It's distributed with the Red Crescent and UNRWA. They do report that a lot of those needs and means eventually from the humanitarian aid are stolen by Hamas, but it is enters. Israel also allows to enter fuel into Gaza. So in terms of humanitarian aid and like the aids to residents, at least in the north and the south of the strip, we don't know how far it actually goes. Israel allows those to enter. So what does it, a ceasefire actually helps the residents of Gaza? I don't know. What does that, how does that actually changes the situation from both sides? I don't know as well. A lot of world leaders are now advocating for a ceasefire in order for both sides to take a break, bury their dead, get resupply. Would that actually be the case in Gaza? I don't know. I'm not the one to say what the ceasefire will actually do. I know from previous events, whenever we had ceasefire, it was just an opportunity for Hamas to continue firing missiles at Israel, with Israel not retaliating. Because then it just didn't take the blame and saying it was individuals who called the shots and not the organizations. If this will mean that it will give Hamas an opportunity to rearm itself and then continue the warfare, then I don't want ceasefire, right? On a personal level, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's good for either sides, both for the Gaza residents that are the one actually suffering from all of this, or for the Israelis who are the one actually suffering for all of this. The only one who profits from a ceasefire right now is Hamas. Yeah. Go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, my question is that there are other organizations there that have hostages, like Islamic Jihad and some of the other ones.
Mhm.
So who knows what they're gonna do? As
You're
far as
absolutely right.
releasing hostages. No, there's been no discussion of that at all that I've seen.
Yep. You're right. We don't know where all the hostages are. Some of them are not even held by organizations. Some of them are being held by Gazan residents that were promised by Hamas that if they'll get hostages in, they'll be rewarded with an apartment. That's actually something that was published. From the different investigations, interrogation, Israel is doing to a lot of the terrorists that participated on October 7th. All of that information was released. Hamas has offered everybody that was able to cross the fence, grab someone, and drag it back to Gaza to be rewarded. And that's the situation. We don't know where all the hostages are. The only way Israel has confirmed where a hostage is whether they had some form of an approved visual, almost like evidence that it was captive, or it was approved by Hamas. But as you said, not all hostages are taken by Hamas, and that's why it makes it even more complicated. Some of them are being held in houses in Gaza. Some of them are being held in tunnels. Some of them could be in hospitals right now. There's no way to tell where all of them are, and not even Hamas knows where all of them are. And that's why it's even more, as you said, going to make it tougher for Israel to get into an agreement, because if they do promise us to return the women and children, it's not going to be all of them. That's only the one Hamas had. And again, this is just there's no way for Israel to win this, to get on the upper hand here, because if one side advocates for peace and the other side advocates for violence and hatred will just continue to be the result here of everything that happens. There's no way to resolve this without harming more lives. I've heard that on the weekend, the first condemn of Hamas was published from from an Arab world leader, the leader of Bahrain, was the first one to condemn Hamas for its action. It didn't spare of its criticism to Israel, and of course, stating it, but saying that the Arab world should get more involved, not support Hamas, condemn Hamas, and find a better way to interfere, even though Bahrain is not one of the prominent Arab countries, not one of the wealthiest Arab countries, such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Emirates. It still is an interesting development. I've also wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening here. I know you probably all have heard about the JCC sign that was vandalized over the weekend. Someone cut the power for the sign. It was actually still working yesterday. They didn't do a very good job at cutting the power. We had to turn it either way just for safety reasons. But it just adds up to a lot more incidents we've heard of in the passing weeks of anti-Semitism and rise of anti-Semitism all over the area. Etz Chaim, the congregation in Arlington, has received a bomb threat last weekend. There was not an actual bomb. There was a bomb squad that had to come in and clear the congregation to make sure. We actually had a JCC, Growing Jewish Family Shabbat talk program supposed to be happening over the weekend in that congregation. It was canceled because of this. Whether there was a bomb or not, their goal of making people feel unsafe and frightened have succeeded. I haven't talked yet with anyone from the Etz Chaim staff. I'm planning on doing so either today or tomorrow to see if they're okay, but it just adds up. There's more incidents happening. all over us. And it is very, very alarming. Not even mentioning what happened on the high school. What's the name of it? I think it's Langley. Anybody want know what I'm talking about? They want to share more information? Okay.
You're right, it's Langley.
Yeah.
Kids, I read kids made a picture of an American flag, and where the stars are, they made, I believe, 50 swastikas. They also were wearing a whistle around their neck, and that too was anti-Semitic. I can look it up while the group waits, but it was not a great thing to read, to say the least.
Yeah. That's what I've heard as well. And then the one kid that posted this and shared this is what's happening in our school was the one that got expelled for sharing this with the media and not telling the staff and teachers about this. I don't know what actually happened there. This is us hearing from news and from people of what happened. We don't know exactly all the details about this one. But again, it just adds up to another incident of taking advantage of those institutes' tolerance, stretching the limit, and making anti-Semitic comments, making students feel very, very troubled and afraid for their lives. And it just sucks. Yeah, go ahead, Phyllis.
Yeah, I actually heard a report yesterday on WTOP about the sign at the JCC. What I find interesting is WTOP said that our cameras caught the incident. So they actually saw who did it. So, but it wasn't even in the newspaper at all, in the Post. But and I haven't heard any other reports about it. But the fact that we have the cameras that caught them, that's good. It'd be nice to find out what happens now.
Yeah, if I could just comment on this, we are working closely with law enforcement. There is significant evidence. They've asked us not to comment publicly on what that evidence is. We were approached by one of the TV stations to do an on-camera interview. I declined that. We're not going out in front of this in terms of making a big media issue out of it. But it was an isolated incident, and the perpetrators are most definitely going to be caught.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good. They should be. So right now, things in Israel doesn't look very good. Things here doesn't look very good. Anybody has something positive that I want to share with the group? And we'll try to give this as a task to all of us for the upcoming session, not just one, but let all of us find one positive piece of news, whether it's from the event here or something in Israel that they want to share with the group to uplift our spirits. If anybody got something like that, we'll do. If not, I'll share what I found. Okay. So I know have we mentioned the rally that happened last Tuesday yet? Have we talked about this yet? Okay. So last week on Tuesday, there was the biggest rally of Jewish people ever in America, right? If we're talking about once in a generations type of event, this is another one of them. We were there. We had the JCC staff there. We actually met with a Agudas Sachim congregation group that also went there, and we joined forces. We eventually lost everybody. I got lost. We got detached. Me, Rotem, and Yordan. The JCC group got detached, but they stick together. The Agudas group was detached. But when you are around 300,000 people, that's probably gonna happen. I'll say it was just an incredible event. First off, walking in the middle of the National Mall wearing an Israeli flag, hearing Israeli music in the background and looking at the Congress building, that was a very, very weird scene for me. I didn't think I would live to see it. I didn't think that this is something that would actually happen. And we were saying the whole time that um, reality is just extreme right now, and everything seems possible, right? Everything that ever didn't make sense now is just a part of our life. This is the weirdest timeline that we're living in. It was extremely uplifting. It was very, very encouraging, and seeing a lot of political leaders as well. The majority leaders of both the Democratic and the Republican Party, along with the speaker, came up to the stage, showed their unbiased support for Israel, standing there as a show of a nonpartisan support. It was just incredible. It was the most encouraging thing I've experienced ever since October 7th has happened. And it was great. It was just great. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
So I want to echo Dean's comment about the rally. But I want to share something that happened about an hour ago at the JCC. Three women from a Christian church on Lee Highway came to our lobby with, I think, about 24 roses and a beautiful card. And they asked for me, and we had a nice visit in the lobby. They wanted us to know that they love us, that they are there for us. Two of the three of them were at the rally carrying signs, Christians for Israel. All three of them have been to Israel, two of them multiple times. One of the things that I've heard from people is frustration that the allies we thought we had in community are not standing there with us. I think that may be a pessimistic overstatement. I think that we have a tremendous number of allies in community who are there for the Jewish people and who are there for Israel. They may be getting drowned out by other views more publicly, but we are not alone in this fight and in this situation. And so if you come to the J today, you'll see some beautiful white roses in the lobby, and wanted you to know where they came from.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was in an event in the Charlotte JCC Shalom Park, and it was filled with cars because they had two busfuls that left from Charlotte to go to the rally. So that warmed my heart, and I thought I'd like to pass that on.
We've heard of buses and planes coming out of all over North America for this one. One of our JCC staff is from Memphis, and she said that their community has chartered an entire plane to be here. We've heard about more than 100 buses coming from New Jersey and New York just to attend this rally. My aunt wasn't one of them, and it took her quite a while to get here just because of all the traffic and the fact that downtown was clogged of all the people and transportations that was there. We heard about groups from Toronto that came in. We've met on the metro from Vienna to DC. Someone from Seattle. I don't know why from Seattle she ended up at Vienna metro station on the way to DC, but it just happened. We had a lovely conversation, which she was also attending the rally. It was just incredible. It was very, very uplifting. And I think it checked all the goals that this rally was supposed to be doing. I think the first and foremost was to encourage us here and to encourage Israelis there to know that they're not alone. And I think it achieved both. It crossed the goal of making sure we are hearing world leaders, or at least US American leaders, that supports Israel from both sides of the political scale. It definitely achieved that goal. And the numbers, making sure that this is the biggest thing that happened to the Jewish people ever since the Holocaust is another one of those goals. And therefore, this marks it the biggest Jewish rally in America ever. And kudos to JFNA, the Jewish Federations of North America, for organizing this in essentially a week and a half. I think it's quite a remarkable thing. Security was very well taken care of. 300,000 Jewish people in one place in the middle of DC, and very, very small amount of actual incidents on this one is very encouraging as well. So they did an incredible job. And I'm just happy about that, the way it fell out. Yeah, go ahead, George.
I just want to underscore your point, Dean, about the political support, because for those of us who know what the history was like before World War II in this country, you couldn't get much support for bringing in a couple tens of thousands of children, refugees, into the United States. Roosevelt kind of had to sneak it in under the wire, and I think it was Morgenthau who pushed for it. So the change in political climate is really dramatic. Now, the challenge is that is to deal with an age divide. I think many of the surveys show that people, certainly under 30, maybe under 40, are much less united in support of Israel. And so something has to be done in terms of education in order to change that perception. So that's something, once this war is over, people have to turn their attention to that. Not just Holocaust education, that's very valuable in itself, but also education about the Middle East, and that people, I mean, in fairness, we may not like some of what's taught, but people have to have a much better understanding of the circumstances, the founding of Israel, how it developed, and so on, where it is now, and the like. And I don't know how easy it is to get that in let's say, pre-college places, but many universities could pick this up as a way to help educate their students. Thanks.
Absolutely agree with you. I can share with you what we're doing here to deal with it, just as me as part of the shlichut, whether that'll be encouraging or not. In the last 4 weeks, I spoke with a lot of the religious schools in the area, and eventually, right, that's the toughest part, not essentially just getting to teens, but to understand where can we draw their attention, right? If we're at the JCC are trying to equalize our importance to social media and activities after school, we're not going to match that. So our only way of actually reaching out to students will be either at school time or those who go to religious school and religious school time. And that's where we started. We've talked with teens from, I think at this moment, with a lot of the synagogues in the area. I've spoke with over 100 teens just about this, giving 40 minutes out of an hour and a half for historical context, trying to understand exactly what has led us up to the point of where we are today. We can talk about afterwards, how did I summed up 2,500 years of complex history into 40 minutes. Again, doing this shlichut for a year now, so I became quite good at this. But also allowing afterwards a lot of time for them to just ask questions, however they feel like it, regarding the situation, regarding comments that they're receiving from their peers, stuff that they're seeing online and they're just not sure of. And so far it's been going great, not just because I'm doing a good job at explaining, but because they are so smart and well educated and observant to ask the right questions and to be aware of what's happening. And a lot of them are actually much more aware than we thought that would actually be. Yes, a lot of students are in a really bad place in terms of education and understanding of the situation right now. But from the teens that I've been speaking with, and I could be filtering through a lot of them and talking just to a very, very distinct crowd, every conversation I had, I was encouraged by it. And I think that also gives hope to know that we're raising good teens, as if despite all that we're seeing and all that we're hearing, there's a lot of hope out there from those kids. In addition to that, we've been working a lot on our social media, both at the JCC, my personal social media as well, to try and reach out to more places, more crowds, maybe reaching out to more young folks as well, whether it's creating content, interesting articles, a lot of those videos, short videos about what's happening. So we're definitely trying. Whether we're succeeding or not, that's definitely a question I cannot answer because I simply don't know the answer to it. But we're definitely trying, as you're saying, Josh, to try and reach out to more of those age groups. Specifically, George Mason they're having their Hillel there and doing a tremendous job trying to provide support for the students and provide with resources. We're working with a lot of the professors in George Mason. So there's definitely a lot of work. This work is trying to cover a gap of 20 years of lack of education regarding to the complexity of it. But it is very, very interesting. Yes,
May
Paula,
I, may
yeah,
I
go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
raise a very quick follow-up? For me, even more important than educating Jewish youngsters, frankly, is to educate the broader community and figuring out a way to get time. Again, it's probably easier at the university level, but nonetheless, approaching the school board, seeing what can be done. You know, when I was a youngster, we used to have, I'm sorry if this is sexist, nice ladies come in from the National Conference of Christians and Jews. They would talk, they show how they got along together, they understood each other, and they would talk to schools. I think we have to go back to something like this model. Obviously, these days you would include Buddhists and Muslims and so on, but the basic point is that people have to become a lot more aware of this, and there has to be some way of getting this broader understanding out there, because it's very clear that it hasn't been done, and we're seeing the very unfortunate results of this. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go ahead, Paula. Paula, you raise your hand. You want to say something? If you're trying to speak, you are muted. You need to unmute yourself. Okay. When you're ready, get back to us. Mike, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not gonna show my video. I'm on several emails, several Jewish organizations that send me emails. Today there is a Zoom. It's called Today's Event is Israelis, Gaza's War and After, and they're going to have somebody from Haaretz. I don't know if you know this columnist or not. It's Ashnel Petfer. I guess he's a columnist for Haaretz and correspondent for the Economist. Ever hear of this columnist? Or
can you repeat his name again?
Okay, let me spell it because it's probably a citizen of Israel. Okay, Anschel, and the last name is spelled Pfeffer.
Oh, may I jump in? He is one of the writers for Haaretz. He writes columns very frequently, Michael. Thanks.
Okay, and then there's another one, Philish, Philissa Kramer. I guess works for the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. So, Dean, do you have any? Dean and Josh, do you know anything about these columnists, or it's gonna?
I'll have to look into it. I don't recognize the name from just you saying. I have to go and look afterwards, but we can correspond about this.
Okay, it's going
I'll
to be
mention
Zoom
you
at
more.
4 o'clock. I know you're pretty busy, probably looking at other press briefings. Do you know if you have time to listen listen to it, or maybe it'll be recorded later on?
Do you know who is the organization running this?
Um, I get it from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, and I think it also came from Jewish Online Events.
Okay. I have to go look. Angel Pfeffer is the writer for Haaretz. Thank you, Josh, for spelling it for us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with them. I would never say no to listening to someone talks, whether you agree with it or not. Always give it a shot. See what it says. You might
Yeah,
get surprised.
and
You might
I
not.
think there's something. I think there's something else tomorrow. Uh, I guess, are you familiar with J Street?
Yes, I'm familiar with J Street.
Okay, I know they probably lean a little bit more to the left. They back a two-state solution. I think they're doing a Zoom event tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Mhm.
At 1 o'clock, I think they're talking to some doctors or physicians who probably help Israelis and Palestinians who are in hospitals. I'm not sure. It's probably more of a human rights
Mhm.
group.
Okay. I think we can also add that JCRC has their frequent updates on
Yeah.
the situation that you're more than welcome to join in. Israel Policy Forum, I think, also has very frequently a lot of those events. You can definitely go to the website and see what's coming next. I think they're more of a local group that gives. They had some very interesting panels in the past. I know they keep on doing those nowadays. Very interesting. Again, I will encourage anybody to listen to anything that will increase your amount of understanding and information you have about the situation. Be very aware of the organizations that you're listening to, of course, and try to make the difference and see if someone just gives. Everybody's going to give a biased opinion. Everybody's going to have a biased agenda regarding to the information. Stay observant. Keep asking questions, but it's always good to have more information about this. Thank you, Josh. The Anti-Defamation League, ADLs, also sends many updates and messages. They also have a lot of panels coming very, very frequently, almost on a weekly basis. Definitely keeps on. I encourage you to keep on a watch for them, along with JCRC. And
מה קורה עם זה באמת? שחררו אותם?
anything else that comes to mind you want to ask, or ask the group, or ask me personally, or just share with this forum?
Dean,
Yes, go ahead, Paula.
I got a phone call in the middle of wanting to say something. It was great to see that coverage on TV yesterday. And you looked great, Dean. You will have so many wonderful things to put on your resume when you go back to Israel because of this tragedy. You have probably risen to new heights. You never expected any of this type of scenario to be presented to you, but boy, do I admire what you're doing. I also want to say, if you work with youngsters, because my kids used to do this in the winter with school break. My children tell me they learn more from summer camp about Judaism than they did from 10 months of Hebrew school. So you can never give teenagers too much Jewish education. And I think it's great that you're reaching out to the teenagers, because my daughter is very, very far away, but she knows everything that's going on with Israel. Same with my son, because it was instilled in them in summer camp, in addition to everything else. That's all I wanted to say. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's try and conclude this weekly session on that. Thank you again for the compliments. I'm not very good with compliments, so just thank you. Have a better week than the one before. Have a great rest of your Monday. It's very good to see all of you. Happy Thanksgiving. I wish you all to be filled with turkey and wine, which I happen to understand that now it's part of the Thanksgiving tradition. We are going to be hosted by a family here for Thanksgiving, so we are very well taken care of as well. And enjoy the rest of your week. It's a pleasure seeing you all again.